nurse came in. But what I was saying is the discussion, the initial discussion about having to do a revision surgery came up, which, if you don't know, a revision surgery is where they go in, take out the original hardware, they put in temporary medicated hardware or medicated cement, or maybe a combination of both. But it's temporary hardware that stays in from maybe 3 months to a year. I think there's no definitive timeline there, other than it's not permanent, because the cement that they use to put in the temporary hardware is so heavily mixed with antibiotic that it's not a permanent solution. It'll eventually dislodge. At any rate, no matter what you do, when you do a revision surgery, there's at least one more major surgery after that, where they take out the revision hardware, and then they have to put, during the revision, not only do they take out the hardware, but they will typically put shafts down in your bone that are medicated as well. And then also get rid of basically like any surface bone that was connected. They'll shave that down that was connected to the hardware, to just do their very best to eliminate any possibility of a transferred infection from the hardware to your bone. So it's a little involved. And then after this 3 months to a year, whatever it might be, you have to go back in. They take that out, and then because they've shaved off bone and stuff like that, you get a bigger set of hardware, which is more invasive, bigger shank, all of that stuff. So just describing it doesn't feel very nice, or it doesn't sound very nice, and I was trying to avoid it as much as possible. And I've worked really hard, thankfully, along with Mounjaro, which has been a miracle drug for me. My blood sugars have been very well controlled since starting to use it, to the point where I basically don't even check my blood sugars every day, because they're always good. And obviously improve my eating a bit, but not a crazy change, but some smart decisions about what I did. At any rate, through this whole process, I've been on a lot of different antibiotics. I've had a PICC line 3 times, one after each surgery, and I had another one. Part of this story is that the second toe on my right foot, which is the same leg as that I had the replacement knee surgery, over the years, for whatever reason, that second toe had become longer than my big toe, and it was a constant source of cracking open, because it would basically take like impacts as I walked. And so instead of my big toe taking an impact, that second toe always took an impact, and always was calloused over and would break open. And part of a decision-making process to try eliminate having open wounds on my feet, obviously, as a point of ingress for infection, I made the decision to partly amputate that toe to at least bring it back so it was just shorter than the large toe. And something totally random happened where a week after having that first amputation done, I got this super exotic carnobacteria infection. I have no idea how I picked it up. And the doctors, they had to send my cultures into the Mayo Clinic, and it still took them like a week to get a response on what that was. And because it was so rare, they really didn't have any guidance for my infectious diseases doctor to follow as far as treatment goes, other than find something that works and stick to it. So that was my third PICC line that I had. And thankfully, that infection never migrated its way up to my knee, because apparently once you have an infection from the first time that I had an infection in the knee, it's almost like a magnet for infection to come up to my knee, because it's a foreign body, and it just has a real strong tendency to infect the knee. Thankfully, that didn't happen, and so through these months, we've kind of had on again, off again, just discussions about having to need revision surgery, and that was about 6 months ago. About 6 months ago. And it looked like I was totally in the clear. Part of this process was that we could identify that there was a small piece of bone that was deteriorating. And that was kind of a marker of sorts to gauge whether we really had this infection licked or not. And after that whole curing of this exotic bacteria, it looked like there was no progress in that bone deterioration. So it looked like I really had this beat. In just the last 2 months, between my Achilles repair and these multiple knee surgeries, I've really been laid up a lot in the hospital over the last 3 years, and have lost just a lot of my natural strength. But like I said, thankfully, a couple months ago, I finally felt well enough to start pushing things and, go on some good bike rides and just start to work on some like really resistive strength training, which I'm very grateful for, because yesterday we were in Utah visiting family. I got to see my kids and grandkids, and we were at the pool, and the pool that I was in had a really tall step into the water, which I didn't know. And so when I walked down on it, I was using my quote unquote replacement knee, and had just put all my weight into it, thinking it was a normal depth step. But it being deeper, all of a sudden I kind of like jammed my knee, if you kind of follow, not expecting this step to be a lot deeper. I put my full weight down, and came down with some force on that step, and didn't really think much of it other than, oh, that smarts. But that next early morning, I woke up at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and my knee was really achy. I was chalking it up to, well, maybe I twisted or jammed my knee in the pool. But once again, I kind of started going this path of where I had been before. I really tried to wait it out. I spent most of the day in the hotel room just resting while the rest of the family did activities, hoping that some rest and some ibuprofen would result in some improvement, which it didn't. And at that, when everybody came back from activities, I was like, guys, I need to be honest with myself, and I need to go to the hospital, at least to the ER, and have this taken a look at. And so here I am, one day later, and about 12 hours after surgery. And instead of this being a clean out, this was a revision, where they take out the hardware, put in the medicated cement, the medicated hardware. But man, it's tough for me to wrap it was a bit of a letdown. I would say a major letdown, because I thought I had this beat. I really did. And to now be back at the beginning of a process of at least 2 surgeries, this initial surgery and one more replacement one, has really been mentally difficult to get my head around. And because it happened so fast. Every time I've been toxic or had this infection, it has come out of nowhere. And in 24 hours or less, I go from feeling a little sick to, my white count this time was only 17,700. And I say only because that's the lowest it's been from each one of these surgeries. But just difficult and a little disappointing to know that I'm now having to go down that path when I've been trying to avoid it. The only, I guess, the ray of hope here is that because I worked on my strength training, I'm in a much better place than I would have been even 6 months ago to handle another surgery. I'm stronger, both in my legs and my arms. So I can handle this recovery a bit better than I would have before. So I'm trying to see that as a positive. And then also looking at, this should be the beginning of the end. Now, is there a possibility that we put in the new hardware 3 to 12 months later from now and eventually end up with another infection? It's a possibility. It's an absolute possibility. Apparently, when you're diabetic, especially if you're not a controlled diabetic, those chances are relatively high. And then you get into some scary territory where they do one more revision, maybe a second one, maybe. But at that point, depending on your health and your age, well, then they start talking about amputation. And that was, I guess that's the most scary part for this for me, is I guess I'm diabetic. Thankfully, I'm a well-controlled diabetic now, and I continue to lose weight. My A1C going into surgery was 5.9, which is phenomenal. And again, I totally give the credit to Monjarno for that. It has been a miracle drug for me. It's been an easy path to well-controlled blood sugars, and I'm very thankful for that. So again, I'm not in a great headspace. I'm obviously disappointed that I had to get to this point. And doing a major surgery like this while you're on vacation, I'm out of state. I'm a 6-hour drive from home. It's just not ideal. I hate the burden that puts on my family and my wife specifically. Part of her enjoyment of a vacation is she doesn't have to drive. She doesn't enjoy driving. I enjoy the heck out of it. And now, when I get discharged in a couple days, we're gonna have to make that long drive back. And I don't even know what the heck that looks like. I don't know if it's going to be me just in the back seat stretched out and take a urinal with me. because I don't know if I'm going to be able to get in and out of the car as we get gas, because I don't want to put the burden of that risk of having a problem on my wife. No way in heck. So it's been a very difficult 24 hours. Like I said, I didn't really want to make this video, but like I said, my guess is that there's probably not a lot of them out there, and wanted to share my experience. I'll follow up periodically. I don't know if it'll be every day or not, but I really haven't told you, I guess, where I'm at right now as far as pain and stuff. So with this surgery, they actually did a nerve block and a spinal block to put me to sleep instead of a general anesthetic. So thankfully, my throat doesn't have that soreness or that pain from having a tube down my throat, which has been nice. It has helped. But I guess one thing I wasn't expecting was you would think with a nerve block that you would feel nothing. While it's true I have no touch sensitivity and like very little muscle control over that leg until this wears off, but there's enough that I can tell my knee is very uncomfortable, and I can feel the coldness, not acutely, but I can feel the coldness of the ice water bath that's being circulated around my knee. So it's not horrible. I knew, in fact, preoperatively, I was getting my head around what I was going to be in for. So all in all, doing okay. I know that there's a long road ahead that's going to be difficult. But knock on wood, this is the beginning of my final recovery. Thanks for watching.